There has been a recent trend on the Genshin Impact YouTube that kind of talk about if 4-star characters are getting weaker and weaker on Genshin Impact. Now, to be very honest, at first I didn't really believe it. I mean, yeah, sure, characters nowadays are no longer as strong as the original OG 4-stars like bennett, Xingqius, but the way I have always seen it is that those were kind of exception and shouldn't be the standard of you comparing it to. Those were just too strong, too imbalanced, and new characters shouldn't really be that strong. Especially given the fact that Mihoyo do have a pretty good trend of balancing characters so far, especially in the 5-star category. However, with the latest release of Candace, well, I lost my hope. However, just before that, I have a confession. Even though I made the best chef in the entire Genshin Impact, I actually order takeout every single day because I don't know how to cook, which is a very expensive way to eat. Fortunately, today's video sponsors HelloFresh actually got me covered with a very good way to save money and time. HelloFresh is a meal delivery service that can easily help you reach your goal and save time with a tons of different options such as veggie, family friendly, or my favorite, quick and easy because, well, I'm lazy. Today, HelloFresh provided me with 3 unique recipes which are all very delicious, from a burger to a pasta, and finally the one we're going to be making today, a barbecue pork chop rice. This recipe are laid out in a step-by-step format that are very easily to follow.
Use pan to cook rice. I use rice cooker.
But yeah, the overall cooking process was definitely very smooth. It was very easy and I had a lot of fun making all these delicious foods. So here is what the final finished results look like. Ta-da! You can actually make this yourself in addition to getting 16 free meal across 7 boxes and free gift as well by using the code POG Tenten Step 16. So check it out using the link in the description below. See you there. To be very honest, a lot of the original launch 4-star in Genshin Impact were honestly just so ridiculous and over the top that they were outright imbalanced, and that is still the case today as they are often just better than 5 stars, even compared to the 5-star being released today. Of course, you have the most infamous one being Bennett, who is the best character in the entire game, ridiculous amount of healing, but the most important part is that ridiculous amount of offensive buff, insane amount of attack buff. Honestly, best pyro character in the entire game is Bennett, and then you have Sucrose, who is like the best Anemo character in the entire game with how she can apply Anemo on every single normal attack. Really good grouping, really good buff. A lot of ridiculously strong team like Sucrose Tasers or Sucrose Hyper Bloom that kind of revolve around Sucrose. Officials, to be honest, some would argue this is the best Electro character in the entire game with how easy she is to use, how deployable she is, how much Electro energy she generates, and how she can apply rapid amount of Electro. Xingqius, arguably the best Hydro character in the entire game with no match in any of his category, including Hydro application or just general utility because he has something like defensive utility and healing. And then of course you have Xiangling, best Pyro DPS in the entire game, arguably no ICD on her elemental burst, snapshotable elemental burst doing ridiculous amount of damage, the best pairing with Bennett. A lot of these original launch 4-star characters were just so ridiculous that they're honestly outright overpowered. To be honest, Xingqiu during his original launch was so ridiculously strong that he had to actually get nerfed. If you weren't here during the original launch of Genshin Impact, his elemental burst used to apply much more Hydro application. It used to apply Hydro on every single rainstorm instead of just applying like once or twice every single wave, which mean that he used to apply about 60% or more Hydro application on his elemental burst alone, which is just ridiculous, and they have to change it just to nerf Xingqiu, who is still one of the best Hydro applicator in the entire game. To the point where he was so good that we thought we're never gonna get a second Xingqiu ever, and then they make Yelan, so clearly we kind of did. And they could do it. To be honest though, it is true that these characters are just too overtuned and too overpowered to the point where it is fair for us to assume they are never going to give us a similar character ever again, as well these characters probably shouldn't exist as they're just too powerful. But it doesn't mean that the post-release 4-star have to be bad. In fact, if we look at some of the early release 4-star in Genshin Impact, Diano was actually a really good character. She was a really good defensive option when she first came out, and so it's a pretty good one with a good amount of shielding and healing, to the point where release Diano was actually better than release Zhongli because release Zhongli just sucked us so much that they have to buff the defensive option from Zhongli. But even then, moving on to the next 4-star character, Rosaria, it is still really good. Rosaria, just like the original launch 4-stars in Genshin Impact, doesn't really have that much major problem in her kit. She has no ICD in her elemental skill or burst, even though that her elemental skill can hit 2 times and her elemental burst can hit multiple times. And that means that she can essentially trigger reaction on every single one of her attack, which means she is a really good good character to put into your freeze team or into your reverse melt team, and she's actually one of the best crowd character you can put in either of these teams. And then everything kind of started changing when Inazuma dropped, to which we refer to as the Inazuma's 4 stars characters. With the release of Inazuma, the 4 stars that we started getting in Genshin Impact had a huge drop in its power level, and most of the time it required Constellation for the entire kit to be unlocked. A character like Sayu was an okay Anemo healer, but most of the time not really as good as Jean. Kurosawa was an electro attack buffer that honestly doesn't even beat Lisa until you hit Constellation 6, and it's not even that much better than Lisa at Constellation 6. Thoma was a pyro shooter that some character or some player could care, but for the most part Thoma was just not really used to it. But hey, at the very least, Thoma did serve a purpose, which is, you know, a pyro shield, and if you do care about a pyro shield, then she could be useful. And of course we have character like Goro, a Geo buffer, character like Yunjin, a normal attack buffer, Kuki Shinobu, and an electro healer. For the most part, these characters were not the greatest. They're not as generic as the original launch 4-star, but they do to some degree serve a purpose, just much more niche. Again, Goro was pretty good in Geo team, Thoma was usable in like a Hu Tao team for VV rape setup, Yunjin is pretty good as a normal attack buffers, Kurosawa paired well with Raiden, so even though these characters were not as generic, they still serve some purposes, and so at this point we thought Mihoyo might just be taking a different direction with their 4 stars, where each of these characters are more focused on doing one thing rather than just being generically good. It is also at this point that every single character starts to have standard ICD, from character like Sayu to character like Thoma to character like Kuki. They all more or less have standard ICD, as Mihoyo might just realize that being able to apply element too rapidly without ICD might be too strong, and so they started introducing standard ICD onto every single characters, which I guess is fair.
Not great or terrible.
While the Inazuma 4-star were not the greatest, they still served as some purpose if you needed one. Kuki Shinobu was our only electro healer at the time, so if you for some reason cared it for electro healer, which some people might do, then Kuki Shinobu could still see it used in certain team. But then we got to Sumero. The Sumero 4-star were honestly just a downgraded version of another character. Kali is a downgraded version of the Angel Travelers. Dory is arguably a downgraded version of Kuki. Candace is a downgraded version of Yunjin. And for some reason, interestingly enough, is that when all the Inazuma characters have standard ICD, which means you can apply element once every free hit, for some reason Mihoyo introduced special ICD with Sumero characters, where a character like Kali or Dory actually apply their element even slower. I suspect that by the time we get to the next region, character is gonna have infinite ICD where they can't apply any element, because clearly this is a trend, right? You have the original character with no ICDs, the Inazuma character with standard ICD, the Sumero character with special ICD, then the next region, extra special ICD. Next region, you actually can't apply element at all. Why play Genshin Impact? The Inazuma 4-star character were quite niche, but at the very least they do introduce something that we were missing from the game, usually something that we kind of needed and something that could benefit specifically a certain group of character or certain specific characters. This is a good example of Yunjin, as Yunjin is a normal attack buffers, and while not a lot of characters care about their normal attack damage, 2 characters that especially shine out were Ayato and Yomiya, and Yunjin did pair especially well with these 2 characters. It weren't a lot, as it is 2 out of however many characters there are, but it is still rather good if you are someone who might care about these 2 characters, right? And so that's what Yunjin at least does. But the Sumero 4-star doesn't even bring anything unique to the table. You have Polly, who is just like a downgraded Danger Traveler, as her danger application is smaller due to lower duration on her deployable, plus the fact that her elemental skill is slower, which is make her rotation a little bit more awkward, plus the fact that for some reason your elemental skill can actually miss even though you can't aim it, plus the fact that for some reason her Constellation 6 could actually ruin your application instead, so her Constellation 6 might as well be not actually that good. Corey as an electro healer just have worse electro application than the counterpart of Huki, while requiring to play this dumbass genie minigame for some magical reason. And then the latest 4-star release in Genshin Impact, Candace, who also buffed normal attack just like Yunjin. And just to remind you, Yunjin's was a really good normal attack buffer, but it was rather niche. Only 2 characters really care about normal attack buffing, Yomiya and Kamisato Ayato. And then they decide that, wow, that niche was pretty niche, let's make another character that does the exact same thing, but worse in that niche. So Why? Instead of releasing new niche characters that do something else different from other characters, Mihoyo decided that for some reason we need 2 normal attack buffer in the game. Now maybe you can do some fun gameplay or fun showcase to stack both normal attack buff like Ayato, Yunjin, or Candace, but for the most part, Candace is never really gonna be ever play in the Genshin Impact meta, especially with how they made her constellation just so much worse than Yunjin. You look at her constellation one that increased her elemental burst duration by 3 seconds, right? So you look at it from 9 seconds originally and it go from 9 to 12, which is like, oh, that's pretty good. It's like a 30% increase. And then you look at Yunjin, who by default start with a 12-second elemental burst. So Mihoyo look at this 12-second elemental burst and be like, you know, let's subtract 3 seconds of it and make that a constellation instead so my player can pay for it. Like, what? The thing that made me really mad about Candace is that she only buffed normal attack. If she buffed it something else like charge attack or plunge attack, at least she might have been unique in that cases. You know, we could use a charge attack buffers. Maybe someone like to play Vaporize Barber doing a bunch of charge attack damage, and then buffing that charge attack could be a niche that we don't have in the game. And then don't even get me started on plunge attack, as Xiao is still waiting for a dedicated support today that we're probably never gonna get. And then speaking of Xiao and Sino both have the problem of long field time, and therefore like our current deployable in the game like visual odds run out too early. So, you know, maybe they could have made a character that have a long deployable, like, you know, Raiden elemental skill actually deploy for 30 seconds. Maybe they can make a character that have a deployable that lasts for 20 to 25 seconds just to accommodate some of these characters that have long field time. It might not be the greatest thing, but at least it is something different and might see some gameplay as it is a new niche thing. I'm sure Mihoyo has not run out of idea yet. They do make a cool character after all with their looks, so I'm sure they can make a cool kid. To answer the original question of the title of the video, without those Genshin Impact 4-star characters are definitely getting weaker. But my problem with this is that they're actually getting significantly weaker, not just more balanced. As you know, again, the launch 4-star originally were too strong, but now we're getting brand new characters that practically don't even do anything and make me worry about the futures of 4-star in Genshin Impact. In the Genshin Impact 3.2 patch, we have announced that we're going to be getting Nahida, which is going to be the Danger Archon, and then a second crowd character, which is Layla. Now, given that Nahida is going to be the 5-star characters, it is not unfair for us to assume that she's going to be a 4-star character, Layla, and that's just to make me worry, as she has a really amazing design. She looked like a sleepy elf, she's like a scholar, and that's exactly really cool. I think a lot of people really like her design. But since she's going to be a Sumero 4-star character, it made me worry how weak they're gonna make her. Maybe she's gonna do the same thing as other crowd characters, maybe like a separate 4-star characters like Diano, who is a current crowd shooter. So maybe they would just make Layla another crowd shooter, because, well, why not make the same character twice, right? To be very honest, to praise Genshin Impact a little bit, Genshin Impact character design is always top notch, even for their 4-star characters. Candace is a super amazing looking character, especially with her Millennium Eye. Dori, our last 4-star characters, has a really unique design with the way she speaks, with a really unique animation like the slime and stuff. And so they're putting a lot of effort into the character design. And once again, just to rephrase, Layla have a really wonderful design as well. But it just make me disappointed they are gonna make all of these cool characters with such a cool design and then make a disappointing kid, and it just doesn't really make sense for me. I'm not asking Mihoyo to make ridiculously strong, overpowered 4-star character like Bennett or Xingqiu's again, even though they did make Xingqiu's 2.0, which is Yalan. But at the very least, I would like to ask Mihoyo to make their 4-star characters somewhat playable in the Genshin Impact meta, because at the current point of the new 4-stars, they are outright unplayable in the Genshin Impact meta. They're never gonna see play in the Genshin Impact meta, pretty much, unless you just want to make some meme team, and that point is not a meta team. That's go against the definition of meta, unfortunately. So yeah, with that being said, I think that's mostly it. It's kind of like an I am disappointed videos, so let me know what you think in the comment below about the recent trend of 4-stars in Genshin Impact. I'm sure a lot of people probably feel the same way in one way or shape or form, so let me know in the comment below. And as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys when a 4-star that's actually good come out.